Ramsey Hanhan is actually, he's a scientist. He has a PhD from the University of Michigan in engineering. He taught at universities as a physics professor. He published, and I asked him this morning, I said, have you published other fiction works other than the one that you are going to be talking about today? He said, no, but I published a lot of scientific works, and he is noted for his computer models that describe and predict complexity in nature, so that you can see that there is a poet in the making, although a scientist at the beginning, but now a writer. He lives near Baltimore, Maryland, and his latest book, but there is something coming after, that's what he told me, but he's collecting it. But his latest book that he will talk to us about is Fugitive Dreams, Chronicles of Occupation and Resistance, and it is a fictionalized personal documentary depicting 5 decades of the Palestinian experience. Please, Ramsey, you're my guest.
Thank you so much, Nuha, and many thanks to the organizers for putting together this incredible program. I changed the title of my paper slightly. It's called Reflections of Sumud in Fugitive Dreams, Chronicles of Occupation and Resistance. And this is my daughter here when she was 6 years old. What you're gonna hear today is a deeply personal story. I'm gonna start it with a reading corresponding to the year 2015. The closest we got to Jerusalem yet was the hill at Ramallah's outskirts, where I took the 5-year-old Ksenia to see it from above the wall. She asked to visit the city. I explained that the Israelis, whom she had encountered at the bridge, blocked us from going there. That night, before bedtime, she approached me whispering something. I leaned in and asked her to repeat it. She whispered again with eyes as wide as when I told her about seeing a fox on the trail. Tell me more about the Israelis. I immediately understood the weight of my undertaking. Her attitude toward them will be shaped by mine. Not only what I tell her, but what tone I use and how I behave. Am I angry or fearful? Vengeful, perhaps? Apathetic? Ignorant? I want to tell her the truth, but how to stop its bloodied shadow from staining the course of her life? The truth, al-haqiqa in Arabic, is intimately related to the concept of legal right, haqq, and to the verb we attain, nuhaqqiq, literally, we make it true. Truth is therefore central to the Palestinian people's attainment of their long denied rights, as it is in other liberation struggles. Now, I'm gonna ask, what kind of truth interests us here? You see this disgusting photo. Yesterday we went on the trip to Hebron, and this is everyday reality in many parts of Palestine. Soldier pointing a gun at a child. And it's hard for me to see what's going on. So what do you see here? If you are a journalist, the journalist seeks the immediate circumstances surrounding this confrontation. The historian digs into origins and causes of that sociopolitical reality. The lawyer may question the legality of the soldier's presence or note violations of the child's rights. The archaeologist literally digs into the ancient past for understanding the theologian into religious scriptures and texts. So you have all these layers of truth, but what interests me here is the one essential, disgusting truth. The whole story, it's what I call poetic truth. The whole story of Palestine is concentrated at the crosshairs. A settler colonial entity built on such vacuous, rotten foundations as dispossession and erasure from the land, from the map, and from the history, naturally demands for its continued existence that children be targets. I aim to freeze such a moment and portray its revolting ugliness, the emotions of the child, the slight tremble in the finger touching the trigger, the horror of the onlookers. That's what I call poetic truth. Now, let's go back to the same picture and change the wording slightly. So I say a child facing a gun, unarmed. You see how describing the same situation, the change of subject turned the child from victim to hero. The narrative matters. Alongside the history and politics, it is crucial to communicate how it feels to be a Palestinian, to make that experience palpable to someone far away who has never even seen a checkpoint or a wall or anything like that. So this is where Fugitive Dreams begins. It's a story of Sumud. The main character, Samir, is on a lifelong quest, and he's searching for meaning. What does it mean to be a Palestinian? Sumud here, I want to define it for you. It means steadfastness, persistence, continuing to exist on the land despite all the obstacles that Israel hurls in our way. And in the paper, I discuss 4 different examples of Sumud. Home and exile. I talk specifically about my own background as a Palestinian Christian, now living in the USA, where there's a massive Christian Zionist movement that totally takes the Bible out of its Palestinian context. And I try to put that back into the narrative. And I talk about the rejection of victimhood and healing, and finally about love. This is where the story starts, at home. What Samir, the child, I'm going to read to you the quote: "Palestine is real to me. That's the country of my birth, occupied perhaps, yet real enough to be touched along with the stones of the Sanasil." That's that stone wall you see here. "Inhaled with the April wildflowers and tasted with the za'atar, Palestine's blend of thyme and spices." What Samir, the child, learns, he learns from observing what is around him. His awareness spirals out from the home to the garden, the street, the neighborhood, his city of Ramallah, Jerusalem, the rest of Palestine, and later the USA and the world. Home, and this ties the Christianity concept. The parable of the fig tree assumes a palpable immediacy when you see a fig tree outside your window every day. The very beginning of the story begins right here near that fig tree, which I end up humanizing in the story, along with the hills, and which the child sees as having faces of giants, nature, everything assumes a human form. And by the end of the story, it ends near that same fig tree where he's contemplating the question of peace. His mother is in the hospital, and he's there trying to seek peace under that fig tree. Throughout the second half of the book, with Samir residing in America, his consciousness spirals inwards towards Palestine and home. Fugitive Dreams offers, this is the fig tree. And this is where we're at now. Fugitive Dreams offered the readers a sweeping long-term view, 50 years in 400 pages, of the changing landscape driven by the population growth and Zionism's continued drive for expansion. On his frequent visits to Palestine, Samir feels locked in the wall's twisted, tangled, writhing clutches and finds a shrunken natural world and an environment under assault. His happy memories of meandering, climbing the slopes, examining wildflowers and insects, collecting unusual stories, chasing lizards, and exploring on the terraces of his childhood confront a growing feeling of estrangement, strangulation, suffocation, and invisibility. The novel ends under the same fig tree in the adjacent lot where he takes a break from tending his aged mother at the hospital to contemplate peace, dreaming of a better future for his daughter. Palestine, as we all know, is the birthplace of Christianity. And in Fugitive Dreams, I set to reclaim Christianity's Palestinian roots with over 35 biblical allusions and symbols that illustrate the deep connection Palestinians have to the biblical heritage. The connection is apparent even in Palestine's means of resistance. The stones of this land continue to meet formidable armies ever since David and Goliath. Christianity's first martyr, Saint Stephen, was originally buried at Khirbet al-Tire, not far from my childhood home in Ramallah. Palestine will be free from the river to the sea. Mirrors, Christ is risen. Indeed, he is risen. Both affirmations of firmly held truth, challenging a hostile reality. Another theme that I use to illustrate Christianity is the donkey. In 1980s, Samir's classmate arrives on a donkey for a school trip because there's no public transportation from his village that early in the morning. And he had the milkman deliver milk on a donkey from the neighboring village of Kalandia. So here, the donkey is still a symbol of connectedness of Palestinian life with its biblical past. By the end of the book, it recurs in a poem by Salem Gibran, lamenting how the sun, the songbird, and the donkey can cross the border, but not the refugee, son of the land. With the wall in place, I note that not even the donkey can cross, while Kalandia has become synonymous with the dreaded checkpoint, gate. Again, it is the invader that severs the biblical connection, ironically, in the name of re-establishing a biblical Israel. I want to have a quote here. The road to Jerusalem. This is an excerpt from a poem called Smuggled, where Samir is smuggled to Jerusalem because he doesn't have a permit. And it says, the road to Jerusalem, so familiar, now so surreal, checkpoints and detours, sneaking like a burglar breaking into his birthplace, child of the land in a den of thieves. And towards the end, I write, we forget that a truly free Palestine has no checkpoints and no walls. Kalandia is back to being the village from which the old milkman has hailed on his donkey. Jerusalem is open to all. So are the roads. There are no settlers, only citizens, equal under the law. So in America, it's common to say, there's an expression called, what would Jesus do? And I'm going to turn it around and add the twist. Where would Jesus be if he was born today? Let us remember that if Jesus was reborn in the Palestine of today, Jesus was a refugee, right? Would he be in a refugee camp? Jesus was a healer. Would he be a medic, perhaps, rescuing the injured in Gaza or Jenin? He was known as rabbi. Will he be a teacher who teaches outdoors because the Israelis destroyed the school in their attempt to evict an entire community? Jesus was a political prisoner. His jail cell in Jerusalem now welcomes visitors, and those of you who went to the Jerusalem tour yesterday got to visit it, so I hear. Will he be held again in administrative detention, or perhaps for refusing to serve in the Israeli military? Jesus fasted for 40 days. How long can he hold on hunger strike in an Israeli jail. Victimhood is, Samir's childhood in Palestine gave him many a reason to embrace victimhood. Thank you. With the psychologically dominating body searches he had endured at the bridge, his school closed and his books censored, his friends beaten, imprisoned, or shot, he had a dosage of victimhood to last a lifetime. Yet, mirroring the story of his people, he chooses a life of healing and empowerment. And I just want to read this quote from the book. For my own well-being, I need to reaffirm I'm not a victim. We are not simply anti-them. To be truly free is to be free to define ourselves as we want, to live our lives in the ways to which we each individually aspire. As we learned in the school of the Intifada, a person who stands for their rights is no victim. And another quote, in the face of their attempts to dehumanize me, my best means of resistance is to assert my humanity. My hope is that Fugitive Dreams inspires others to write their stories. You can find more information at my website. I will have books outside for sale. And thanks to my brother Ghassan for bringing them over from Ramallah and Jerusalem. I just want to say that the novel ends in 2020. The dislodgement of the most basic rights of Palestinians has gone for too long. It is time Palestinians exercise their full rights as human beings. And it's available at the Educational Bookshop in Jerusalem also. I'll just leave those editorial reviews up here for you to read. And I have events in Ramallah and Jerusalem. If some of you are staying afterwards, you can hear more. Thank you.